When you are in alignment and you're leaning in discernment, you are able to experience life with ease and with flow. The ease that comes from knowing you are going on a smooth ride. And the minute that you stay out of alignment, it's because your discernment, your GPS is off. So you go off that road. And that doesn't mean that that's bad. Sometimes you go off the road because you want to take a different route. Know that you can always come back to that beginning. Know that you can always come back to the road that is paid for you to journey with ease and flow. How do you feel about mentorship? What is your relationship like with the mentors in your life? Have you ever felt like you could only sustain certain results in your life because you have a mentor? Have you ever felt like you needed the mentor in order for you to bring your vision to life and to sustain it? If you ever felt like that, this episode is for you. I'm going to be sharing with you how I navigated those feelings in my own life, how I got the courage to release those mentors, and what I discovered about myself in that journey. I'm going to give you a very clear picture. I'm going to paint for you a very clear picture of what's on the other side of trusting yourself with yourself and being willing to let go of those mentors so that you can continue to bloom wherever you are planted. This episode is for those of you that are ready to sustain the results you have learned working with others and to leverage yourself in your own life. In this episode, you're going to learn what it takes to be fertile ground for you to continue thriving after the mentor. This episode is part 3 of my 3-part mini series titled The Power of Unlocking a Spiritual Discernment in Your Life. If you would like to listen and watch part 1 and 2, head to the show notes to grab the links. This is also a video podcast, so I want to encourage you to join us on YouTube so that you can get the full experience. The link for that is also in the show notes waiting for you. And while you're there, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified as soon as we drop an episode. Now let's get into the episode. Which brings me to the third key to unlock the power of discernment, of spiritual discernment in your life. And that is, be ready to let it all go with an open heart. Let me drink some water before I tell you about that. Be ready to let it all go with an open heart. This entire time that this was happening, things began to change in the business coaching program I was in. The people that were there when I first joined, that I felt like were my tribe and I was so excited to be around, they began to leave. And the energy began to shift. And very slowly, I noticed that I went from being a newbie in this community to being a veteran with, I would say, a year of being there. And because I am who I am, I was hitting records. Records for me. I was breaking my own records. And I was in that place for a year and a half, I want to say. Let's say maybe a little less than 2 years. Excuse me. And in that time, I was able to do things that people had been there for years and hadn't accomplished. And because of that, there were people in that container that looked up to me, people that wanted my support or knew that I could help them in some shape or form, see things from a different perspective to help them. There were people there that felt like, oh, Yenory is really great to be in here. And I will go on the calls and I will always ask questions. I will bring my vulnerability. I would open myself up like a book and I would share with them what I was really challenged by. And they appreciated it. They would tell me like, yo, thank you for asking questions, or I really was touched by that comment. They themselves wouldn't be asking the question. They themselves wouldn't tell what was going on with them. I would though, and they would share that would serve them and they would express their gratitude for me choosing to do that. And while that was happening, I began to notice that it was time to leave. I began to notice that that was a place that I was no longer in alignment with. And it really was a difficult thing to experience because I loved that place when I got there. I loved it. Every call I went on, I just felt so alive when I left those calls. I just felt like I had found my tribe, and I was facing the reality that it wasn't the same place anymore. I was leaving the place and I wasn't feeling energized. I was feeling drained. And when you're someone that's very spiritually attuned and your empathic abilities are heightened, you feel the pain of others at a deeper level. And I will go on this course and feel all the pain the folks were feeling at a deeper level. All the pain of not hitting their sales numbers, all the pain of not closing clients, all the pain of not having their bills paid. Like I could just feel all of it. And I also knew about it because I was talking to them offline. And it became very evident to me that it was very difficult for me to stay here. And then something that hadn't happened before started to happen. It became very difficult for me to pay for my program. Paying for my monthly membership became a very challenging thing. And as I reflect back, I can see that that was spirit shutting that close for me because I wasn't ready to shut it myself. So I began to see that, it was time for me to go. And before I was due to renew that program, a few months prior, I actually had spoken to my mentor and I had told her, like, I want to be here for 5 years. Like, I want to do my first $1 million year with you because I feel like you're so amazing. And she is. I don't want this to be about bashing. This is not that. She helped me make a lot of money. Her tools worked. I got the results. Okay. It delivered. I made what I invested there and then some. What I also realized was that I had to step away from that space. That space was no longer in alignment for me. It wasn't healing to my soul anymore. Because when I would leave feeling drained. I would leave feeling exhausted. I would leave feeling like I had poured onto others from a cup that was not overflowing. And like I told you in the last episode, what's in the cup is for me. What's in the cup is for you. And I was not holding what was in the cup for me. I was giving it to other people. There was no overflow. And my cup had quite a bit of cracks in its foundation. And it was because I was able to let it all go. It was because I was available to having an open heart that I held space to not only identify those cracks in the foundation, I was able to hold space to fill that cup with love, with compassion, with grace, and slowly allow that cup to overflow with that love, with that compassion, with that grace. And I began to show up differently in my life. I released clients that before I would have been like, I want you to stay working with me. I'm going to find a way for us to work together because I was afraid of the rejection. I was afraid of being, I was afraid of being abandoned. And the thing is that the only person that can abandon me is me. The only person that can reject me is me. The only person that can abandon you is you. The only person that can reject you is you. Everybody else is a mirror to that. So when I was available to let that go, as painful as it was, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not even trying to be dramatic. Like, I was weeping when I realized that I had to step away from this place. Because this was my home. This was the place that I thought I have finally found. I told you in the last episode that for 14 years, I have been searching for a community. I've been searching for a place where I can be celebrated, where I can put myself first, where people are doing the same thing and we're making money. And I thought this was the place. And it wasn't. It was a place that was helping me see that the actual place was coming. And I released it, and it was very challenging. And when I told that mentor that I was going to be walking away, I was very challenged. It really broke my heart. And it was important for me to do that because it's what taught me that I had this fear that I couldn't hold it on my own. I had this fear that I couldn't stand on my own. I had this fear that in order for me to experience success in the way that I desire, I needed her. You hear that? I needed her. I felt like I needed the mentor in order for me to live my life on my own terms. And because I was willing to let her go, I held space to see that the mentor is amazing. I know I'm a mentor, I'm amazing. And at the very same time, the only reason why the seeds that the mentors that plant in me are able to bear delicious fruit is because I am fertile ground. The only reason why the seeds that the mentors plant in me are able to bear fruit is because I am fertile ground for those seeds in the first place. So I can definitely hold it on my own. I was doing it before them. I simply got lost in it. And I got lost in it because I was transitioning from being a simple wife and business owner to being a mother, wife, and business owner. And I didn't have to attach myself to those things anymore to feel good enough, to feel worthy of myself. I could let that shit go. And when I let that go, I let everything go. I released every single mentor I was working with, because then when you're working with two mentors at the same time, there were so many cooks in the kitchen and none of them were me. And I'm looking around like, well, who am I here to follow? Is it this person? Is it this person? Is it that person? Is it this person? And when I was able to release everybody, the most beautiful thing happened. I could hear myself. I could hear my own voice. And I had a lot to say. I knew exactly how I wanted to run my business. I knew exactly the things I wanted to do. And I had been dying to do them. And there was a part of me that was so afraid of going at it without them that I wasn't doing it. That I was shrinking myself in a space that I knew I had outgrown. And when I let it all go, I let joy back into my life. I'll never forget my husband telling me, "Where are you? It's like you're here, but you're not here. You're with us, but you're not with us. Where are you going?" And it was in my head, looking for ways to make money, because I thought that that was the thing that was going to bring me joy. It was me stressing, thinking about where am I get the next sale from? It was me worried about how I'm going to keep this client. It was me going to the depths of overthinking and perfectionism and analysis paralysis on how can I show up and get the success I got the last time. It was me living in the past and over worried and anxious about the future. That's why I wasn't here. And I didn't even know it. My nervous system was so out of whack. I was so burnt out. The month that I hit my first 6 figures in a month, I was so exhausted. I felt like I had been run by a fucking bus. That's how exhausted I was, because I was forcing myself to do things that my body was like, this is not in alignment. And after all of that, going through all those things and unlocking my discernment, I'm now in a place where I have the joy, and I can discern that it is joy because it comes from within. And I know it doesn't live out there. I don't need to go out there to go get it. I know that it lives in here. It lives inside of myself. And I can tap into that joy at will. I began to enjoy mundane things like cleaning my house. I cleaned my closet, which I have been talking about cleaning for a long time, but I feel like I don't got time for that because I got to go be a business owner. I restarted to cook again. I started to have lunch with my husband and my kid. I started to have dinner with my husband and my kid. I started to go outside daily and walk with my son. And we began to go to the museum once a week. I began to enjoy my life. We were talking in that container about living the life of ease and flow and joy, but we weren't living it. And then I started to live it. And while that meant that things look different in my business, because my business hit a huge contraction, particularly last year, I think that we closed the year at I'm looking at my board, I would say it seems like $65,000. That is over $200,000 less than what we did the previous year. I was happier. I had space. I had room. And I was always taken care of. Even after my husband was laid off, always taken care of. My son always taken care of. I allowed myself to sit in my divine feminine and receive. And none of that would have happened if it wasn't because of my ability to move through those 3 keys I just shared with you and be okay. And then in my business, I started to create from love again. Because I realized I didn't fucking like my business. I didn't like the way I was doing business. And I didn't want to feel like that about it. I began to really work with people that I enjoyed, that felt really aligned, that were beautiful souls, and I could see the beauty in them, and we could be honest with each other. And I didn't feel like I had to perform for them, and they didn't feel like they had to perform for me. And we created a trusting relationship with each other. And as a result of that, I got the courage to change my offers and readjust my pricing so that I am meeting the women that want to work with me where they are instead of telling them where they quote unquote need to be. I had the courage to put the ego aside and serve from a position of unconditional love, serve from a position of knowing, of intuition. I allow my ego to come the fuck down. And I let my inner peace expand. I let my inner joy expand. And got the courage to do this podcast and to pivot in this way and to be okay with it. And to be okay with the process of being a beginner again. And to know that I'm a beginner, but I'm not a beginner. Because I'm beginning not from zero. I'm beginning from experience. And now the type of women that I'm desiring to attract are women that are committed to loving themselves unconditionally. I don't feel like I gotta pretend. I can do my readings, which I love to do. I can talk about healing and energy, and I can talk about spirituality and our ancestors and connecting with our guides. Things I would have never done before because I was afraid that somebody wouldn't like it and that they would leave. Now I know anybody could get it. If you don't want to be in this place that I am doing these things, then I'm not your person. And that's okay now. And before, I wasn't okay with that. Before, I felt like people walking away from a space I was in because of the things that I quote unquote was doing was indicative that I was doing something wrong. That's the conditioning that I grew up on. And now I see that people choosing to walk away because they're not aligned with what I'm doing is a gift. It's an invitation for them to show up to themselves. It says nothing about my worthiness. And I see people as my equals. I see people as my fellows. Like, I don't see a mentor above me or below me. I don't see myself above a mentor or below a mentor. I see myself here. And if that means I'm making uncomfortable decisions, like carrying a balance for months until I get to a place where I feel that I am financially equipped to take care of it, then I will do that. And if that sucks for a little bit, then it's going to be okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being uncomfortable for me. I'm not afraid to be afraid. That's what discernment has helped me experience. And that's why I desire for you to unlock it for yourself. Please have the courage to shine the light of awareness on your shadow. And when you do that, accept that everything and everyone is a mirror to you. You can learn from every situation. And then be ready to let it all go with an open heart, knowing that it's unfolding for your highest good and that of humanity. Because I know it is. I can feel it. And I'm in a much loving place. And I can serve in a much kind and compassionate way. And that's why I now understand that community that I have been searching for the past 14 years, where I will be celebrated and I will be cared for and I will be held and I will be encouraged and I will be held accountable for myself, is the Self-Trust Society, and it's a community that I am here to co-create, and I'm here to bring forth because it's what I give myself. People can't give me that. I can only give that to myself. And because I give it to myself and I continue to give it to myself, there is an overflow. And that overflow is what pours into the Self-Trust Society, and from which I co-create with the women that join that space. And if you feel called to join that space, you can head to theselftrustsociety.com and join us. And you can even try it out for 30 days before choosing to commit to it and see if it's in alignment with you. Even saying that feels a little uncomfortable because before I would have never done that. And now I feel like, why not? Come and see what it's like. Come and be part of our renaissance. Come and be part of this new season in our space. Come and allow yourself to experience the overflow of unconditional love, the overflow of self-ownership, the overflow of grace, the overflow of compassion, the overflow of intuitive guidance, and experience it for yourself. That's what I'm here for. And now more than ever, I see that I can do it. I can do it with ease. And when it comes to mentors, unless my guides come and tell me this is a mentor for you, I'm good. And I know that. And it feels so liberating to know that. It feels so liberating to know that I don't have to look for that insight out there, that I can quiet myself, listen to my inner guidance, allow the voice of God to speak from within, and experience its overflow, its abundance through me. This episode went quite a bit longer than I anticipated, and it seems like my inner self had quite a bit to share. I want to share something with you before I close out that I learned from a shaman, and that is that most people seem to think that our highest self is this part of ourselves that sits at a pedestal and judges our actions. It looks down on us and the things that we are doing that we quote unquote know to be quote unquote bad. And what our highest self truly is, it's not that. Our highest self is what emerges from our ability to look at our shadow and to shine the light of love on our shadow. And when we go and bring the light of love into our shadow self, that holds space for our highest self to emerge. When we are willing to look at the ego and see how our ego is making decisions that for us may not be in alignment, and we are willing to be okay with the part of ourselves that made those decisions, and we are willing to hold space for the part of ourselves that feels uncomfortable as a result of those decisions, when we are willing to look at those parts of ourselves and learn from those parts of ourselves and love that part of ourselves and appreciate that part of ourselves and take the learning and apply it to our lives, that's when our highest self shows up. So as we close this episode, I want to encourage you to utilize the 3 keys to unlock the power of spiritual discernment in your life, and be willing to go to the shadow part of you. Go to that part of you that you don't like. Go to that part of you that's making those quote unquote wild decisions, because in a way, it's supporting you. I think about discernment, or I was sitting with this earlier, discernment and the journey of life. The journey of life, we want to go at it in alignment. And when we go into alignment, think of alignment as going on a journey on a paved road. And discernment as your GPS to stay on that paved road. You can still arrive at your destination whether you choose to go on that paved road or whether you choose to not use a GPS. When you are in alignment and you're leaning in discernment, you are able to experience life with ease and with flow. The ease that comes from knowing you are going on a smooth ride. And the minute that you stay out of alignment, it's because your discernment, your GPS is off. So you go off that road. And that doesn't mean that that's bad. Sometimes you go off the road because you want to take a different route. Know that you can always come back to that beginning. Know that you can always come back to the road that is paved for you to journey with ease and flow by aligning yourself with your discernment. And when your discernment is clear and strengthened, you'll be able to stay in the path of alignment in your life with a deeper level of joy. And you can always return to this path anytime you choose to take a scenic route. Everything I experienced this past year, and even since I started this business that I share with you today, has been parts me taking the paved road and parts me taking the scenic route. And as you can see, I'm still here with you today. I made it to this point. This used to be a destination for me, to be able to speak about the things that happened in my life and to be vulnerable and to tell my story and to do it without fear and to do it knowing that it's unfolded for my highest good. I dreamt of moments where I could do this. And I didn't know that I'd be able to do it because I was living in such fear, in such darkness, in such heaviness. And now here I am. So if it's possible for me, I know that it is also possible for you, because we live in a universe that self-corrects and course corrects. It's up to you to choose it. Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of the Yenory Pouncil Podcast, where we talked about the 3 keys to unlocking the power of spiritual discernment in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love to invite you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star or a 6-star review, and share with somebody that you love, with a daughter of the African diaspora that you appreciate and that you know will find this information helpful. If you desire to join the Self Society and be a part of our beautiful community where we are grounded in loving ourselves unconditionally and loving others unconditionally, accepting them from who they are, and showing up in a way that feels truly aligned with the highest version of ourselves, looking at our shadow, loving on our shadow, learning from it, and transmuting it into the light of love, I want to encourage you to head to theselftrustsociety.com and consider joining us to be a part of our space, a space that is going to focus on meeting you exactly where you are and getting to a part of yourself that you've been yearning to connect with, rooted in unconditional love, grace, and compassion. In the next episode, I'm going to give you a behind the scenes look at the Self Trust Society. I've been talking throughout this series with you about the different ways that going through the different experiences I shared impacted my business, how they shifted my structure, and the different things I put into place as a result of unlocking discernment in my life. So what I want to do in the next episode is to open the doors for you, virtual doors that is, so that you can see what it's like inside the Self-Just Society. And I want to share this with you because perhaps you're also a business owner and you want to make some changes in your own space. You want to align your business with your inner voice and your intuition. And I want to walk you through what that process was like for me and how it materialized. Plus, you'll get to get a tour of the Self-Just Society in case you desire to join us and see what's on the other side of it. Thank you for joining me today, mis amores, and I will see you next time for the next episode. Hasta luego.